Hello, everyone. I'm Shannon Stommel, an application developer at Instill Wire Products, and we'll be sharing with you all the best practices for Start Center portlets and their queries. Here's a little agenda of what I'll be sharing with you guys. Start Center portlets and best practices for the Start Centers, then the portlet queries along with their best practices. And a little disclaimer, we here at Instill are currently on Maximo version 7613, so the examples in this presentation are for this version as we have not yet migrated to MAS. We have MAS in our test environment, and from what I've seen, I don't believe there are many differences between the versions, but wanted to let you all know that the examples here are on version 7613. Okay, so a little introduction. A Start Center is the first screen that a user sees when logging into Maximo. Their security group membership determines how many Start Centers they are able to view. If they're a member of multiple security groups, then they will have multiple Start Center tabs to view. The Start Center can contain multiple portlets or a single portlet. The portlets can display data in a variety of ways, from a result set to graphs. Here at Instill, we mainly use result sets to display data in the portlets. We have a few charts, but 99% of our portlets are result sets, as we have found this best helps the user with viewing the necessary data the quickest. We also use bulletin boards, which are helpful to remind users of new changes that we implement in Maximo, and are also used to remind users of upcoming downtime with Maximo or at the plant or upcoming holiday celebrations. Because everybody enjoys holiday treats in the break room being available. And then behind each result set is a query which determines the data that is displayed in the portlet. It's important to make sure that the query is written correctly to reduce load time and improve readability. All right, next slide, please. So Start Center portlet and best practices. First of all, make sure the business goal is known, as sometimes what the end users are requesting is not what should be displayed in the portlet. This discussion determines that the content in the Start Center is relevant. Also, it's better to have more Start Centers and fewer portlets on each Start Center. This helps with performance, as each portlet request generates a separate query to pull in the data from the database. You want to limit the quantity of portlets on the Start Center. It's best to have 4 to 6 on the Start Center. If more are needed, an additional Start Center tab to display the other portlets is best. Also, it's best to limit the number of rows and columns the portlet displays. By default, the number of rows are 10, but here at Instill, we display 5 rows to help with the display screen. All right, next slide. And here's an example of our Start Center portlets at Instill. Again, we limit the view to 5 rows so the user doesn't have to scroll as much. And we try to keep 4 to 6 on the Start Center. Some have more, which does cause system slowness. I looked through our Start Centers and believe the max number of portlets we did have on a Start Center was 16, which is way too many. There was a small performance issue with that particular Start Center, so we kind of have to pick our battles with management. But we try to stick to 4 to 6. And here we also limit the columns displayed to be 4 to 6 to reduce the need to scroll horizontally. Some of our users have smaller screens, and some users like to increase the screen resolution and zoom to a higher percentage. So limiting the number of columns and rows helps with the variety of displays that our end users have. All right, next slide. Here's a few examples of individual portlets on the Start Center. To sort through the data in the portlet, the user can click on the next page in the bottom right corner of the portlet to view the next 5 rows, as we display 5 at a time. There's also a filter option for the columns if they know of a specific asset they're looking for in this example, or the description or location. Also, if the user wants to grab all of the rows in the portlet, since we limit to only view 5 at a time, they can click on the Open Result Set and Application button in the top corner that's highlighted in yellow. In this example, when clicking on the Open Result Set, it will open the Asset app and display all 370 assets. So that's another way to view everything that's being pulled into that portlet. They can also download all of the assets here in the portlet, and this example will download all 370 assets into an Excel spreadsheet if they want to do some data manipulation or view it outside of Maximo. This helps limiting the number of rows and columns of the portlet to only show what's necessary. If more information is needed, there are options for the user to see more detail or to save the data that's displayed. And I believe in MAS on operational dashboards, the portlets are now called cards. But from what I've seen, the functionality of operating the results set and the application and downloading the data into Excel are still available. Okay, next slide, please. Here are our portlet queries and their best practices. The goal of the query is to reduce loading time and display the needed information to the user quick. To effectively do this, it's best to filter irrelevant records. And some examples of irrelevance are closed purchase order, closed work orders, etc., things like that. Avoid using select star in a portlet query for database efficiency. Use select one if needed. As soon as a wildcard is in a query, any indexes won't be used anymore. So if it's pulling in a large table that is being queried, this will definitely impact the performance of pulling in the data for the portlet. And another little extra note, so here at Instill, we've had different developers work on Maximo and then lead the company. And if they created the query, their name is tied to be the owner of it. And it can be a little bit of a process to remove their name from the ownership. So we have all of our queries here tied to an internal admin account in our test environment, which then helps if we have turnover in the IT department. So it's kind of a little something that we've learned the hard way over many years. Okay, next slide, please. Here's a little query example of using select one rather than the wildcard for database performance. Just highlighted in yellow there for you guys to see. Okay, next slide. And just a few more query examples. And just kind of a heads up, work order numbers are kind of deceptive as they're not numbers but varchars. And so you have to set your order by to be _number if you're wanting to sort work orders in numeric order. And also here's an example of using exists1 in a query, a subquery actually. And also the PO revision number has been an issue at times where we want to make sure that the PO revision matches what you're querying. The PO revision number has bit us a few times in the past by returning bad data if the revision numbers aren't checked in the query. So just a little heads up on that too. All right, next slide please. And a few extra little tips. Here at Instill, we don't allow users to change portlets or queries, which eliminates the possibility of a cache overload. So when the user first logs in, the portlet is cached. So only IT makes Start Center changes and modifications to the portlet in our test environment, and then they're migrated up to production, as this also helps reduce cache overload. And if your company allows users to modify their Start Centers, make a note to clean up the user's data when they're no longer active with the company. Next slide. A few extra little tidbits. Since the Start Centers are granted by security groups, make sure that the same Start Center isn't applied to multiple security groups. This would give the user the same Start Center tab multiple times, causing slowness on their login. If the user is logged into Maximo multiple times in their web browser, this will also add performance issues. I've had users call in complaining of slowness. So when I team viewer into the user's computer to help troubleshoot, you can notice they have multiple browser tabs open in their browser. They complain of slowness, and after closing the tabs and only have one open, the speed is improved. So not sure if this happens everywhere, but I've seen it many times here. And also here's a SQL query, where you can see if users have multiple Start Centers, if you want to see kind of who has what. Next slide, please. So in summary, know the business need first and foremost. Less is better. And display essential information only to help with performance and preventing slowness of loading the start centers. This all helps keeping users happy, as no one likes to wait and watch a little spinning circle while the queries are turning in the background. It's frustrating for us all. All right, next slide, please. Thank you all, and I hope that the Start Center Portland Queries tips are able to help you in your environment. And please let us know if you have any questions.